When I grow up, I wanna love what I do. And then when I grow up, a coach can help me get a clue. Hello, grown-up giggers! Oh my gosh, I am thrilled to have with me the ray of sunshine, Jessika Hepburn, bringing the sun into the winter in Canada where she is, and the winter in Brooklyn where I am, the winter everywhere else. So cold. But she is the community leader and consultant and writer and Renaissance soul, and the leader of Oh My Handmade Goodness, which is just an unbelievably valuable resource for crafty business owners.
Yeah, for makers and entrepreneurs. Yeah.
It's fabulous. It's fabulous. So thank you so much for giving us your time and in advance for sharing your story.
Yes, thank you for inviting me. It's really exciting. I can't wait.
Okay, so I have to start every grown-up gig interview with the question, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I've been waiting for this.
Good.
I wanted to be Canada's first female prime minister. It was like an obsession. I wrote about it. I had like policy documents that I was creating. I was going to, fix everything really. I wrote a song when I was 10 and a half and I got it put on CBC about what I would do when I was prime minister. And I had a really crazy teenage years, but that like little dream of wanting to create greater change, I think, has always followed me. And I went back to university to do the courses to do like a pre-law degree so that I could be prime minister. And I think it was about then that I realized that to be prime minister, I would have to spend all my days with politicians. Shoot, I didn't actually want to do that after all.
You're like, wait, I didn't think this through. So let's figure out how I can make real lasting change, but not as Prime Minister of Canada.
But not as Prime Minister of Canada, yeah.
Do you remember some of your platform policies that you wanted to run on when you were 10? Oh my God, I want to hear the song more than anything.
I should track it down.
You have to.
Oh, I was going to administer help to the starving people. I was going to end homelessness. I was going to get people to stop cutting down trees in Clackwat Sound because the trees were my friends. I had like a full platform. I was really like heartfelt, like my first experience with like real poverty. Like I grew up without a lot of money, but I remember I was 9 and I saw a man eating cat food out of a garbage can, and I was like, this is just not okay. And I was always really positive. So it was like, what can we do? We can have potlucks for our community. And
oh my gosh. I would have voted for you. Who wouldn't have voted for you? I mean, forget the fact that you're, I was waiting for you to be like, my platform was there'd be unicorns for every child or like something that a 9-year-old, but these are real issues.
Yeah, I don't remember ever being 9 like my 9-year-old is. And, like she believes in fairies and she like wants to be, she wants to grow wings when she grows up. So she's 9. She wants to become a fairy when she grows up. And I love that. I protect it like a fierce mama bear. But when I was 9, I was going to like...
I can't wait. I could interview her in like 10 or 20 years. And her answer to the question, what did I want to be when I grew up, was a fairy with like real fairy wings.
Oh yeah, we woke up one morning to her standing over the bed, like hands on hips, saying, "Mom, Dad, your wings won't grow if you sleep on your back." So we don't sleep on our backs.
You have to listen. I mean, how could you not listen to that? Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so talk a little bit about that transition from that 10-year-old who wanted to be prime minister, and it seems like that dream lasted a long time, but in your teenage years, you were already like had a business owner and doing these things that obviously led you to where you are now. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I sat on my first board of directors when I was 9 for the Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Canada. Mm-hmm. And I was like in a little movie about big brothers and sisters. And I was really into, sitting on boards. And when I was 12, my mom moved me to Prince Edward Island, which I grew up in East Vancouver. So Prince Edward Island is like the complete opposite side of the country. Uh-huh. And I got involved with like Youth for Social Justice and like all sorts of like pretty like political organizations on the island. I think I was 13 and 14 then. Like I got arrested when I was 14 for setting on fire a 14-foot effigy of Ronald McDonald to protest the opening of the McDonald's. Like I was a crazy teenager, right?
Oh my God.
At about 14, I got into drugs and I, sort of lost a lot of those pieces of myself for a while. And so I was, things were really rough from 14 to about 18 when I made some big changes in my life and left an abusive relationship. And I started working with kids. And I really credit working with children to not only, changing my life, but changing my perception of who I was as a human being. Like they see value in you immediately. So they saw value in me, and that taught me to see, a great deal of value in myself. And they never told me to not be super cheerful.
Amen and hallelujah.
Yeah, I could be ridiculous and like wear crazy clothes and have fluorescent pink hair, and they just thought I was awesome all the time. And I think I wanted to be like that. I wanted to be like a kid, and I wanted people to feel awesome all the time.
Right.
So I started working with kids, and then when I was 19, I got an inheritance, and I used that inheritance to start an inner city summer camp for kids. So we took 150 kids out of East Vancouver and to the woods for workshops and creativity. And I think that's when I really realized that I could just do about anything,
It's like you were a superwoman. And I'm sure this could be a whole nother interview on its own, but to just be like, have this money as a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And to say, oh yeah, I'm going to start in a camp for inner city children, and we're going to go into the woods and do crafty projects and stuff. I can't think of any 19-year-old that would make that decision when they come into so
everybody
money.
told me it was a terrible decision too, for the most part. My mom was supportive, but still like, do you really want to take your like...
Right, nest egg, whatever.
Nest egg, and use it for this. And, people were like, you should invest it, and you should, buy nice clothes for the first time ever. And I was like, dude.
Well, you were investing it, just not in the stock market. You were investing it in these kids, which obviously meant something to you. You were like being your own prime minister.
And I think that like being your own prime minister has probably like been a thread in my life. I think there's an Ani song where she says, I always wanted to be commander in chief of my one woman army. And I've had that like in books for years. Like, I don't do it alone,
Yes, amazing.
And so when I started that summer camp, we brought in like all my musician friends and my artist friends, and we had like Dr. Seuss hip hop, and it's like this is how things should be all the time. We should all be taking kids into the woods and going on adventures and hanging out and making shit happen all the time.
Oh my gosh, I want to go to that camp like tomorrow.
Yeah, we're doing one for adults.
Okay, you'll give me the information. That sounds unbelievably amazing. Okay, so that's when you're 19.
Yeah.
And you've already just, done all these accomplishments already. So you didn't do like the college route, let's go, I have to study something, blah, blah, blah. You just like dove into the different projects and causes that seemed like they meant the most to you. Yeah,
well, I've always been really self-sufficient. Like I moved out when I was 15, so I didn't have, I've always had to work. I've had to be productive. I've had to, keep things stable and make things happen. So I quit school in grade 9, and then I went back to school again in grade 11, and I was on the honor roll for 6 months, and I got a great scholarship, and then I quit again.
What was it about school that like wasn't, that you weren't feeling?
Yeah, well, I loved it then, and then I just, I was off on something else. So, and then when I was 18, and about that time period, I started the summer camp. I went back to college, and I didn't have high school transcript or anything. So I wrote the equivalency exam. In Canada, you can write an equivalency exam to get into college or university, and I got crazy high marks. So I just went straight into college without ever needing high school, and I did really well, and then I got pregnant. Things sort of changed around.
College is always going to be there, right? But yeah. Totally. So what did you study once you went that route? What did you decide to study?
Sociology, political science, cultural anthropology. Like I wanted to do like a degree that would set me up to if I wanted to become a lawyer, if I really still wanted to be prime minister. So I was accumulating those pieces, and I love sociology and cultural anthropology because it's basically community studies.
It's just this thread. It's just this thread forever that has shown up in different ways and has been interpreted in different projects and causes and things, but it's all
the same thing.
It's all the same thing. Like, were you able to kind of see that and articulate that from the beginning?
I think like there's been times in my life where it was super clear, like in that period when I was starting the summer camp and I was really politically active, it was really clear to me that community was the thing that could heal us, as a culture, as a world, as a global community. And then when I had kids, like when I had my first kid, I was 20 and my partner was 19. We'd been together 3 weeks. There was kind of like a full stop there, you know?
Right.
Like I couldn't reconcile like having to care for this tiny little creature and fighting for the planet at the same time.
Right.
I think things sort of telescoped around then. And that's when I started to get interested in entrepreneurship as an option, because it would let me sort of be home and figure out a new pathway. So when my daughter was 3 months old, I started like a jewelry company because I've always been a maker. It just always seemed like something that you do for your spare time. It wasn't something that you did for a business.
Well, and this was give us a year here.
2004.
Okay, so this is like pre-Etsy, right? I mean, it's
totally
really such a different landscape 10 years ago. Like such a different landscape 10 years ago.
It was. So I think if it was the same world now, it probably would have been a different outcome. But because I've always worked in a collaborative setting, being a solo entrepreneur was really like the worst possible fit for me. Right. So I built a website and I had a media kit and I had a wholesale plan and I got a business loan. Like I did I did a 5-year plan,
But that's what it was. That's what it was. 2004. That's like there was no other way of thinking about it, right?
Yeah, it was and I did fashion shows and I traveled up and down and I realized that working for myself in that sort of environment was isolating, and I didn't pull from me that same passion that community did. So I think it was never going to go far. Yeah.
That's interesting. So it seems like passion is a word that I obviously gravitate towards with the work that I do, and I feel like it's a really important ingredient when you're finding your grown-up career that's going to stick. So, but I know that there are some, I think especially creative Renaissance soul like people who hear passion and they immediately no, that's not what I feel, or that's not possible, or that's not, but if I love it so much and I make it a career, is it going to feel like a chore?
See, I find it's the opposite. It's like that enthusiasm makes going to work every day like a bright light, like especially since I found, and then we haven't even, sort of made it.
Yeah. We'll get there.
I found this new iteration. It's like, I am overloaded with ideas. Like I can't possibly do enough.
Right. I say to my husband, I will always have
other
work
people respond to it too, and it becomes something bigger than yourself. Which I think if you're just sort of doing it because it feels like the right thing to do, it's hard to bring that level of maybe not passion, but enthusiasm, optimism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll give you your $10 later. I appreciate that. And it seems like with the jewelry stuff, you were coming at it from, partially a place that you enjoyed making the jewelry, but it seemed like more of a logical decision. Like, this is what I could do so I could stay home with my baby and, be a mom and still have, an income and a business and stuff on the side. Like, logically, it seemed to make sense.
Exactly.
But once the wheels started really turning and you started getting into it, did anything happen that made you realize this isn't what I want to be working on? Or was it just kind of a gradual thing?
I think it was a gradual thing, and I didn't make a huge amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I still don't make a huge amount of money, but I love every minute of what I do, so it doesn't really matter. I think when you're doing something that doesn't fill you up in the same way, and you're not making a huge amount of money, and it's a lot of work, like especially jewelry design, and that industry is highly saturated. Even it was 10 years ago, so you have to really put on your persona, and you have to go out, you have to market to retailers, and I am just a little too messy for that. I've seen, now in the last 10 years, there's all sorts of super cool tattooed, dreaded jewelry designers, and it's different than it was when I was 20 with my tattoos and my dreads trying to sell high-end jewelry.
In Canada, right? We talked about this before we started recording. You weren't in Brooklyn.
I was not in Brooklyn.
In the more conservative areas of Canada, right? It was, right.
Yeah, it was amazing though. I nursed my baby and I took her to all of these shows, and I was young, and we packed up the jewelry and we put the tent in the car, and we, traveled around. And so as a family we were really new together, really. I was a new mom and we were a new relationship. I think it was extraordinary that we could do it.
Right.
And then I had this new partner who was really just so willing to be like, yeah, sure, you're awesome, let's do that.
I wonder if how much of it is just, the personality piece of you and him, but also just the age, right? This is why I don't have very many, if at all, clients under the age of 25, because I feel that age, it's just, you could do anything. Let's just pack up the car with the new baby and go sell jewelry at a craft fair, and I could do it.
Jewelry at the same time, whatever.
I could do it. Perfect. Okay, so you realize after a while that sounds like the hustle and a lot of the pieces of the jewelry business were not for you. You mentioned before to be a solopreneur. You're all by your lonesome, too isolating. Not
and it lacked that sense of being part of something bigger.
You lacked the community.
Yeah, the community, absolutely, for sure. And that, the work has meaning. I liked making women feel empowered with beautiful pieces. I liked that piece of connecting with an individual client, and usually they just tell me their whole life story and they may or may not buy something. So it's the same deal that I do now. It's most of what I do is community counseling. So that didn't change really in that instance. But it didn't feel like I was being a part of a larger movement, which I think was important to me. And I think with the start of Etsy, being a maker is now definitely you're a part of a larger movement, but back then it didn't feel like it.
Right. Oh my gosh, I get that. Okay, so now bring us into the new thing. So was Oh My Handmade Goodness next?
No.
What was the next?
What did I do in between? I was a preschool teacher for a rural preschool. I moved my family to this tiny little island in BC called Sointula, which is it was started in the 1900s as a socialist cooperative by the Finns, and it's the oldest working co-op in Canada. So, I was still following that community, searching for home. I think that was a big piece of what we were doing right then, is searching for some place to root. So I was the executive director of the Community Resource Center there, and I started a documentary film club, and I was the scout leader.
Wow.
I did all things. So I really left, I left the jewelry business, and I was just that's not, and I went full tilt back into community building.
Right.
Yeah, and my partner was supportive of the time that is needed for that, which I think that was a big piece when the baby Isla was small and a baby, that I just, you can't work 60 hours a week on something.
Right.
I didn't think I could then, It's not how I do, but
right.
So we ended up leaving there. We moved to Halifax because it was housing prices were really high, even in that tiny little community. And we bought a house in Halifax, which was one of those decisions that you make for safety and security, and I hated it.
We always regret those decisions, right?
And I planned some events, and I worked for a natural parenting store, and I started doing more marketing and design, which I had done for nonprofits over the years. And then I saw I had done some design work for a client, and she had said that she saw this website for sale. And I had never been a blogger. I had never really been into that piece. I'd built websites for nonprofits and organizations and events, but never for just the sole purpose of like sharing fun things.
Uh-huh.
And so I contacted this woman, Sarah Tams, who ran a business called Sarah and Abraham, and she had just built Oh My Handmade Goodness in 4 months before, and decided that she couldn't maintain it and she was going to sell it.
Okay.
And I had no money, but I wrote her anyway. I was like, I have all these ideas, because it was already kind of a little community. There was like 10 contributors, and I couldn't see running a blog, but I was like, I could run a little community. That would be awesome. And we made a payment arrangement. So I paid her $3,000, I think, for the site over, I think it took me 6 months to pay her.
Okay.
Maybe more.
That's pretty nice. I mean, $3,000 over 6 months.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money in a short amount of time.
Something like that, yeah. It felt like a lot of money, especially because there was no real purpose to it,
Right, it's an investment. Like, I'm sure it sounded like you kind of saw it as a passion project.
Yeah.
More than anything at the time.
Yeah, and I was lacking, a sense of community in Halifax, and I was missing making.
Yeah.
So it just seemed like a perfect little combination. And at that time, I was really into kids. I had just had my second baby, and it was a website for people who handmade children's products, right? So that's what Oh My was when I first bought it. And that's how I kept it really, from community building. I've learned that you don't go in and you make a huge amount of changes or have all the ideas or just do everything and be like, oh, you've been doing it wrong. So I was really, really quiet and sort of timid for the first 6 or 7 months of editing Oh My, and I kept things pretty similar, and I was still cheerful and engaging, and I brought in a whole bunch of new contributors. And I started to get really passionate about it. I just really loved it. And I quit the job that I was doing at that point, and I started focusing more on it. And after the first year, we left children and that piece behind, and we moved to just being supporting, handmade makers and entrepreneurs. And as we've grown over the last 4 years, that's developed to mean makers as well as all of the support systems that contribute to a creative economy. So the graphic designers and the marketers and the, sort of a more holistic approach to business. The biggest piece of gathering everybody together was a year into running Oh My, actually 3 Februaries ago. I thought it would be really awesome if I could gather all of these amazing connections that I had been starting to make online, and we could talk in real time for an hour. Started the OMHG chats on Twitter, #OMHG. And we've been running those weekly now for 3 years. And that's been the biggest catalyst for my business, for my community, for speaking, for meeting you. It's been the root of everything, really.
Wow. And I feel like Twitter chats, it sounds like you started them at a place where Twitter chats were pretty new and people didn't really know what they were. So do you remember how that idea kind of came to you and why you settled on let's do these weekly Twitter chats and see what happens?
Yeah, I do. The first I went to some Twitter chat that I saw. I think it was a magazine, and it was super scripted. And it was question A, question B, and then there was lots of giveaways. It was you'd be the 300th tweet and they'd give you something. I was thinking, I had been meeting all of these amazing people through Twitter. What if we had tea together? Wouldn't that be awesome? So we just did it as a one-time thing, and we talked for 2.5 hours, and it was just so good feeling. People were let's do it again next month. So we did one the following month. So it was February, and then March. We did one in March, which was based on ethics, because I have an annual theme where we talk about ethics in business and entrepreneurship. And that one exploded. There was a lot of pent up need to talk about, some of the deeper concerns about being an entrepreneur online. And then people kept pushing, so we started doing it weekly, and it's been 3 years of doing it every week, and it's never been a single time where we've had nothing to talk about. There's that little part of you that every week, it's been 3 years, every week I go and I'm oh, what if nobody comes? And it's never happened.
Oh my God, and it's never going to happen.
Not once. No, it's never going to happen. That's what my friend said. She's people will always come, dude. So.
That's amazing. So, it sounds like it's just to highlight the fact that it came from a place of, let's have tea together. I've met all these great people on Twitter. Let's help other people meet other great people on Twitter.
Yeah.
Building community. Community with the side effect of being able to market your business, oh, my handmade goodness, all the other stuff. I kind of always feel like when marketing or promotion is like the side effect of something else that you're doing that feels really good and authentic and relationship building, like that's the best promotion you can
It's the only kind of promotion that I do now. Actually, I think I've given up on selling things. I think I stopped selling things last year, and it not only did it not impact my bottom line, it increased it. Like,
how? Ooh, tell us more about that.
Yeah, instead of saying, you know, like I've got this great promotion or I'm selling you this or I'm doing this, I usually make it part of a conversation. And I only create products that are being asked for by people. So like I invested $13,000 into the new Oh My website. It was the biggest investment I've ever made in anything in my life.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I basically saved all of our profit for a really long time in order to do that. I took no draw from the business, and we lived really frugally in order to do that. And I built it because people were asking for a place to gather. So there's like a whole private members area. There's like a marketplace where you can find all of the services you need to grow your business. And those were things that were consistently asked for. So I don't really have to market. Instead, when people say, well, where can I find this information? I was like, oh, we built that for you. It's right here. You know?
Or now it's in my idea. Oh, maybe that's something I will build for you.
Totally. Or do you want to build that together is usually my first
That's so amazing. So amazing. So now at this point, you know, I know it's so hard to ask an entrepreneur like us, what's your day-to-day like? Because our days are so different that we don't have necessarily an average day that we could say like, we wake up and then we do this and that. Everything's so different. But is there any sort of insight you could give us as to how you keep those balls all up in the air, and when you decide you're going to, you know, maybe focus on speaking or then focus on the community site or you know, the other things you're doing to bring in income and build your business?
Yeah, it's been a juggle.
Yeah.
For the first, this year has been really slow. So it's been slower for my business. It's been slower for my public, you know, performance. But there's been a lot of busy stuff, you know, a lot of difficult things going on the family side. So I had to take a step back. I, you know, put up an announcement that I wasn't speaking for a year and that I wasn't traveling for a year. And if you wanted to find me, you could come visit my little pink house in Nova Scotia. I will make you tea and we could talk about anything. And prior to that, I invested like at least 60 hours a week into my business. Yeah, and I worked a lot. I worked until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes, and then I would go to sleep, and then I would wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning to parent the kids. And that is totally how I got the momentum, like no word of a lie. And it was like I was obsessed.
Right.
And I loved the hell out of it too. Like I was having a really, really good time. And I think I missed that part really of being so passionate and invested in my business that it's nothing to work 60 hours a week. It was
right.
I have a much more normal schedule now, honestly.
Normal being more like 40 hours a week? 30,
probably between 40 and 50. I took on client work this year for the first time, really. So I've been doing a lot of graphic design and branding for clients. So that's taken up like more of my business time. And that was needed because my partner was laid off and I couldn't continue to keep my business money separate. I've been drawing most of my business money for the last year in order to pay the mortgage and, you know, support the kids, which is really cool that I can do that. But it meant having more boundaries around how enthusiastic I could be about every project. So I work six days a week. Typically, I don't work on Sundays. I don't open the computer. I don't have a phone on Sundays. I'm not available. And then I work usually in the evenings after the kids go to bed. So my real work day for most of the week starts at 7 o'clock at night and goes until about 1 o'clock in the morning. So that's still for the most part. And then I work 2 full days on Tuesdays and Thursdays when my 4-year-old is in daycare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So things have been a little shifted because my partner has been laid off, so he's home. So he does do more of the parenting. And I've been able to focus on the business and then also like supporting my mom during her health crisis this year. So yeah.
Thank you for being so transparent about that. You know, a big reason why I started these interviews and why I feel they're so important is that on the internet, just everyone's life looks so
good.
Perfect. Not even good, like perfect. And, you know, a lot of the times, you know, I mean, everyone's comfortable with certain things, letting out certain things honestly, and keeping other things. And I'm not saying this to encourage people to say things that they're not comfortable talking about publicly, but I think a lot of the time we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, and we don't know, are people actually paying their bills with this business, or if they are, have they been in business for 20 years and you just kind of, you know, don't know it. And so to hear your adjustments that you made for your family in order to, you know, step up as, you know, head of household in a way, and be able to say, you know, you're taking your Oh My Handmade Goodness audience, the community that you built and people that love you, and now you're doing something a little different. So it's the graphic design and the branding, you could bring that in and out as you want to.
As needed, yeah. And I don't advertise. So like I really only work for people who are like, I really want you to do my branding for me. And I only work with people that are like kindred spirits, really. So like I built Lucky Break Consulting, I built the website and the brand, and that was wonderful. And now I'm working with Tara Swiger, who I love her. So like I get to design rocket ships for people. It's all good.
I
also don't want it to become a part of, like, I don't want it to become a big piece of my business, because it leaves the community building piece a little behind, where I think that branding is like, can be a community building exercise.
Yes, right.
I think that I need more business time, so that's a juggle, you know, one client at a time sort of deal.
Absolutely, but it's about boundaries. It's about boundaries. But I mean, I love it, because I feel like we're all these creative, multi-passionate people, but we get in our head that like, no, unless I have a website for, you know, with my portfolio and blah, 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 and I've been to school and I have this degree, like I can't possibly charge people for graphic design.
Yeah, I charge people $120 an hour. Nobody's
happily. And then, you know, I need 5 clients. I need 3 clients. I'm just going to do 1 client. I'm not going to do graphic design. You know, you could do it from there.
And it can come and go. And also it allows you to really play. You know, I've done community consulting for people, like playful learning, to create a community around a new program. And those are pieces that I really enjoy. I'm like, I could make a business out of that. And then I just won't do that.
Absolutely.
Because then you wouldn't have time to do this piece, which will be sustainable in the long term if you just, you know, continue to work on it. So there's a juggling there. And I really like that piece that you said about how we don't really know each other's stories. I think that that's something that we need to continuously work on, because it's totally scary to share our stories. But every time, and I've got a pretty crazy one.
But inspiring and powerful.
Story, people are like, oh, I love you so much more. And I might lose 10 followers, but I gain like 1 person who really knows me and who's cheering for me.
Right.
And it also has allowed me, every time I kind of step out and I tell the truth about my experience, and I like to do that too, because I'm like that in person. You can ask me anything, and I'm like, people also, they tell me their stories. So I've become like a repository for these stories of so many people that we see on the internet all the time. And most of them, it's not perfect. It's not shiny. You know, like especially the last couple of years, our community has gone through loss and birth, and, you know, we talked about breastfeeding, we talk about mental health, we talk about suicide. Those are things that happen for makers and entrepreneurs all the time. And the more we put up walls and pretend that they're not happening, the more isolated we feel when they happen to us, you know? And we're just not as equipped to ask for help then.
Right. Oh, amen and hallelujah. Do you have any advice for these entrepreneurs, whether they're makers or coaches, consultants, copywriters, and anything like that, to give them to build their community? Like, what would you say is the biggest thing or the most impactful thing they could do to build their community?
The piece that I've been telling people for years, like in youth workshops, and I've taught it to CEOs of companies, that you have to start with 1. right? You start with the one person in front of you and you genuinely appreciate them and you genuinely listen to them and you genuinely engage. And then that one person leads to the next person, and that's how you build a community. Like it's not really complicated. It doesn't involve a lot of strategy, and that's how I've built Oh My, is because I genuinely am interested in your story, and I think that comes across. If you cheerlead people a lot, that helps too. Your attitude makes a big difference.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you have to realize this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yes, it's a marathon, and it's like building a foundation, right? You build piece by piece, one stone at a time, one step at a time. And then don't forget those people who have lifted you up,
Right.
I still probably spend most of my time dealing with the underdog.
Right.
Spend most of my time talking to celebrities. The internet does allow us to do that. But I've found that for the most part, people who are interested in you, if you give them that interest back, they will support you to the very end.
It's so true. And I think, going back to the shininess of the internet, we see people that's like, oh my God, this person has 20,000 Facebook fans and this person has 50,000 Twitter followers. And, we think of the numbers, and unfortunately, there are aspects of being an entrepreneur that look at those numbers and feel like, that's how many people, will love you and buy your book and whatever.
So true.
But meanwhile, the people who are getting the numbers genuinely, that's one thing and that's fantastic. But the people who are just trying to let's follow every single person that'll follow me back that
makes a big difference. Yeah.
It's not real. It's not real. So it's better to have, 500 very engaged followers,
absolutely,
fans, blah, 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 than 5,000 who aren't listening to
Totally. I think that, truthfully, the level of engagement has not changed for Oh My in between 5,000 followers and 8,000 followers. There's not a huge amount of difference. I think you create a core community, and also, actually, as your following gets bigger, it becomes more difficult to build those intimate relationships with people, and you need to create more boundaries. So, I like stay small. Small is gorgeous.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, and the last question. Your story is just, so many fantastic twists and turns, and you have such a varied experience. Anything that pops out that's like, oh, if I had to do it again, I wouldn't do it this way. I wouldn't have done. I don't want to say regrets, but anything you could think of that would be like, oh, that wasn't the best move for me at the time.
Yeah, I'm a super emotional person, and so I think for a lot of especially my earlier years, I would react to conflict in a really emotional way. It really upset me. It was very so I my heart would pound, and I'd have to get up and deal with it. I have to find a resolution. Maybe kids have dealt with that. So there's lots of times I can look back and be like, I did not resolve that situation in a way that left both people feeling heard. I went in there and I was like, I'm right, even when I maybe wasn't totally right. And I've learned a lot about not being right. As I've gotten older, I'm totally willing to be wrong.
I think that's one of the good things about getting older. It's not so important to be right, and we can distance ourselves from that and just go, oh, yeah, you know what? I was wrong. I'm going to say that I was wrong. I'm going to handle this in a way that's going to make me proud.
And I'm going to listen to you and see and try to understand your rightness and your truth in that situation so that I can have a more complete picture instead of it just being about me. It's not about me. I think I've learned that more and more every year. And the more I learn it, the better my business gets.
Gosh, I love it. Okay, we're ending there. We're wrapping it up in a bow. Everyone go visit Jessika and her Amazeballs community over at ohmyhandmadegoodness.com. Is there any other URLs that you're at too?
That's pretty much the big one. I just started houseraiser.ca for my mom and to talk about homelessness in Canada. And then you can also find the Oh My community at our first ever Makers Retreat at Hollyhock, which is Cortez Island, BC, October 17th to the 22nd. And you can register on hollyhock.com.
Yay! Oh my gosh. So we didn't even touch on what's happening next. So the retreat is happening next, and also you getting personally involved in the homelessness issue. And
yeah, making a separation between, you know, sharing some of those elements of my story on Oh My, because that's really been my home place for a long time, and creating a platform where I can better advocate for my mom and for other communities that are in crisis, and sort of, you know, have those two things inform each other, I hope, as we move forward.
Jessica, if you were to run for Prime Minister and I was a Canadian citizen, I would vote for you. Still in a second. You have my vote from New York City.
Well, thank you.
You're amazing.
Be like the resident, like, quarter Brooklyner.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you again so much for being here, and thank you for watching and being here. There's more Grown Up Gigs goodness for a whole nother week. Thank ya.
Thank you. Bye.
That was Amazeballs.